Welcome to the PR Wind Down Podcast, the show for public relations professionals who are ready to see real change in the PR industry. We are your hosts, April Margulies and Laura Schooler. Let's get ready to wind down. So, for today, we're going to kick it off with a what not to do from PR pros who know. And the what not to do is don't take it personally when a client gives you tough feedback. It's easier to say than do in general. I think it's really difficult especially when you're working really, really, really hard for a client and they don't see half of the hard work that you're doing. They have no idea how much you're putting your heart and soul into it. They have no idea how stressed you are, even after hours and overnight about their account, and you don't let them show it. You're never going to show that to them. You don't let them see that, but you're doing that. And then all of a sudden they come in with like, oh, it's not enough. And I think the biggest mistake to make is to take it personally and feel like they're doing something horrible to you.
Yeah.
And they're not appreciating you personally, because at the end of the day, it is a business relationship and transaction. We're in client service. And I think we have to kind of have the tough skin that it takes to just roll with the punches. And it's not to say you want to roll over and let your clients walk all over you like the rug man in New York City. I don't know if you know that reference. Do you know the rug man? Do you know the rug man?
It sounds like a Seinfeld episode. What's the rug man?
There's a guy in New York City who goes to all the parties, a lot of the parties, and he lays underneath a rug so that people step on him on their way into the venue.
Oh, I don't know about him. And why does that? That sounds like some weird S&M thing.
Totally. And so you don't notice it's a person you're stepping on because he's put himself under this giant rug.
Right.
Until you stepped and it's a little bit not flat.
Right.
And then you realize you're standing on a person under a rug. I'm glad you've never had to experience this. He showed up at a lot of reggae parties. So unfortunately, I stepped on the rug man a lot.
So how does this part of our don't be mad, don't be upset if a client gets mad at you story?
Because I don't think we're trying to be the rug man. I don't think that's where we're going, right? I mean, client service is one thing. That is a whole other like psychologically damaging, kind of Stockholm syndrome kind of vibe. We're not trying to do that, right? Like that's not the goal, but the goal is to provide customer service. The customer is always right within a reason, right? And it's like you want to find that balance where you're
right. So you're not trying to be the human doormat.
Yes.
But trying to remove your emotions from a vast majority of the interactions that you have.
Yes, you need to remain impersonal. It is a business transaction. It's not meant to be a personal attack. And I think it's very easy to get into the feeling of like, oh, it's them not appreciating or respecting me. But right. I think the second you do that, you're in dangerous territory. You're either going to say something to the client that's going to make them want to leave, or you're going to sort of toxify the entire situation.
Well, so I think that this probably applies to life, not just business, that you shouldn't take things so personally, because even if they seem personal, even in your personal life, so many times it's always about the other person's crap and not really anything to do with you.
Yeah.
And so many things with clients that I've seen is once you talk it through, you sometimes realize that what you thought they were even saying isn't even what they were saying, or what they thought you were saying wasn't what you were saying. That's one big thing that happens a lot, like half the time. Another thing is, who knows if their kid is sick, if they've been working, 20 hours a day, if they have insomnia and they haven't slept, if they owe $1 million to the IRS, you don't know. And
right. Their mom's suicidal. Right. It's like there are all these potential things that could be happening behind the scenes for any given person.
Right. So you have to try to maintain your rational thought ability and realize that what you're there to do is to help them move their business forward. So what in whatever discussion or problem that you're having with them can you do to make that business problem, go away, regardless of how they're reacting to you? I don't know, but how do you get there? So there's two things. How do you get there when it's really like far afield? And then what if like they're just really irrational and like never come to a real place of commonality.
If it's that bad where they're actually abusive repeatedly and there's not a way to get a handle on it, I think then it's sort of up to the agency owner whether they're going to keep the account or fire
Right.
the client. But you could still flag that and say, hey, I'm really uncomfortable and I just feel like this is not a professional environment. It's one thing if they're being unprofessional and then you're setting a boundary, but that's also not like reacting from a place of emotionality, right? Because you're
Right.
just saying, hey, this isn't going to work for me anymore.
Right.
What can we do about it? I want to make sure that everybody wins here, but
Yeah.
I can't keep working on this account or whatever it is, right? So I think that's one option. I think a lot of times it can be weathered by just good client management. So kind of the old fashioned listening to everything they say, repeating it back to them so that they feel heard and that they understand that you understand. And, that calms them down a lot. Just even if what they're saying is irrational, if you can even just say back to them, so what I'm hearing you say is you feel like because we haven't gotten you in the Wall Street Journal in the first month, that this is a waste of money. I understand feeling that way. I understand it could be really stressful for you to put this kind of money into PR and you're expecting big results. Do you want to kind of help manage expectations because da 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 da? Like, I think there's a way of saying that without saying,
Like, is
well,
it
that's
your
never
board?
going to happen. Or
Right,
like,
right. Or saying to them, is it your board that's like forcing you to get these kinds of results in this amount of time because
right,
of what their expectations are, their money? And let's see if we can find something that will appease them, some other
exactly.
solution.
Yep.
Because they might not understand that there's more than one solution to a PR problem also.
Yes, agreed. So I think that's good, right? Getting at the root of what's stressing them out. Is it right? Is it that they're trying to position themselves for an acquisition? Is it that they're
Right.
under the gun from their boss because they're about to get fired? Is it, I mean, they're not going to tell you some of those things, but you might be able to kind of decipher better where it's coming from based
Right.
on their answer, even if it's not that blunt. Yes.
So if you can come up with another solution, it may deflate their emotions.
Agreed. So I think that, and then, keeping track of everything in writing, making sure that you're covering off on all of the approvals, making sure that everything is shared with them again and again and again, even if you have to share the same update over and over to make sure that they hear it and that they know what's happening. And, just, I think the end of the day, figuring out what is stressing them out, and then how can you help alleviate that stress point or pain point if it's something PR can do, or if you, as just a good listener and, human being to this person, can do that.
And, if you're successful in doing that, you may really make a long-term client partner.
100%.
And
Yep.
like you said, if somebody's just like continuously irrational or abusive, then you don't have to get emotional about it. You can get very, like you said, boundary setting about it. And it may end up ending the relationship, but in a
professional manner. And I think setting boundaries with clients is smart. I mean, I don't think we should be letting them abuse us and call us at midnight and be rug man. Yeah, we're not trying to be rug man. I still love that analogy. It's so weird. It's so specific, but
rug man. Wow.
It's a real thing. Oh, Laura, I think I see our guest.
Great, let's let him in. So our guest today is Olu Green. Olu brings over a decade of expertise across sports, entertainment, talent, and brand marketing to the table. Climbing the corporate ranks through various high-stakes sports, entertainment, marketing, and talent relations roles at the NFL, ESPN, Beats by Dre, Stance Socks, Call of Duty, and as an independent consultant, that's a few high-name
oh yeah,
there.
That's an impressive resume.
Olu has built an unmatched Rolodex of high-level talent, leagues, record labels, media companies, and brands. Currently, his focus is to identify and communicate authentic insights to influence talent deals, strategic partnerships, and marketing campaigns to connect A-list talent with brands seeking to target the, quote, cool kid through pop culture.
It's quite an introduction.
Yeah. So right before you got on, April was telling us that she had interviewed to do PR for Beats by Dre at one point.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
What year was that? Do you remember?
God, I'm trying to remember. It feels like ages ago. I was the PR manager for eMusic and I had just moved out to LA. So it would have been probably 2009, 2010.
Oh, so pretty early on. I
Yeah,
started there.
early on.
Yeah, I started there early 2012. And at the time we had maybe 50, 55 employees. So yeah, if you entered 09, 2010, yeah, it really must have
Yeah,
been.
you guys were tiny. And
Yeah.
it hadn't even really been officially launched yet. It was still kind of in the making.
Oh, wow. So it was really early
It
on.
was really early on.
Would have been
The
cool.
Yep.
punchline, Olu, is she didn't get the job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that PR people know dangerously not enough about sort of, entertainment marketing. And so I'm interested in what your goals, how it works, et cetera. That's what I want to get out of this. And so I do want to ask you a question. So talking about the Beats by Dre, you were in the early days, not the early days, but the early days. What was the goal of the company at that time? And what was your role in achieving that?
Really, it was one of the biggest goals of just getting athletes excited about the headphones and the brand and wearing it on TV, getting it on their Instagram accounts, things like that. But what we call TV looks were the biggest thing for us. So it was really, getting the right athletes, the right product at the right time. That was the formula.
And what was the product at that time?
Several over-the-ear headphones. So we had the corded workout headphones also, but yeah, the priority products were several of the over-the-ear headphones. One was the pro model, one the studio model.
And if that was, you said 2012?
Yeah, 2012.
So that was like, social media was not as prevalent then as now.
Yeah, when I first started, Facebook and Twitter were obviously going pretty strong.
Right.
The Instagram was kind of still rolling out. Beats didn't have an Instagram account when I started there. Yeah, I remember like personally doing all of our sports social posts from Twitter and Instagram. The college basketball championship game, I remember like live tweeting that game from the Beats handle from my corporate housing. It was interesting that the national championship for college basketball is coming on tonight. Yeah, so it was really pushing some of those messages out via our social channels, but yeah, it was still pretty early on for Instagram. I believe later on that year, the BCIG came out.
Okay. So how do you get athletes? Like, what did you do to get them to wear them?
It wasn't overly difficult, especially for my previous roles, working at the NFL for a couple of years, and then at ESPN, I was specifically on the NBA. So I would say most of my contacts were around basketball and the NBA at the time. So I already knew, several players, already knew a lot of who the agents were. So it was easy to kind of get the product out there to the talent.
Right. And do you pay them to wear it?
No. So LeBron, we had under contract, but at that time, LeBron helped kind of launch the brand very, very early on. Right. But other than LeBron at the time, there was no athletes under contract. Yeah, it was all off of relationships, really getting them excited about the brand, that sort of thing.
And you just gave them free product and they said, okay, we'll wear it. And you're allowed to say that we were wearing it, or did you ask them to do their own like tweets or Facebook posts at that point about it?
It wasn't really a requirement for them to post anything on social media. We really just like to keep the relationship kind of open. Right. That way they're more likely to do it for us. And a lot of those guys at the time, they're so much into Beats, or if they actually just tried the product. So yeah, it was kind of a mix of giving them what we call inline product. That's what anyone can just go to like the local Best Buy and buy themselves, or elite guys are able to make them custom headphones also.
Oh.
Yes.
And how involved is Dr. Dre at that time?
Yeah, he's definitely involved. Yeah, you feel like his presence, and he's there. Even if you don't physically see him, you see his security at the door. So he was around. He's involved.
Like, I'm sure he's got friends, in the NBA and all the leagues. Like, did he, call them up and be like, yo, dude, can you wear my
headphones? Right. Not really. It wasn't, you didn't really feel that as much. It was more his input into other areas of the business.
How long were you there?
Almost 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was a while. Yeah, so it really saw the growth, like I said, from 50 employees to over 1,000. The Olympics that summer were pretty big for us also in London.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Oh, right.
really
I remember the London.
Yeah, we really seeded a ton of athletes around the world, wore the product pretty heavily throughout the Olympics on TV.
So like when they weren't competing, but they were shown like, sitting there, they'd have their Beats.
Yeah, exactly. Even some of the swimmers, as they were going from the locker room out to the pool, were wearing those headphones on TV. We were not a corporate sponsor at all either. So
wow. So how jealous are all these companies of you that you're like,
yeah,
just sending some product out and getting probably millions of dollars worth of,
Oh yeah.
Now, did you have PR people in-house or a PR firm, or did you work with PR people?
PR we had in-house, and PMK, actually, it's funny, that's where I currently work now. They were our PR agency also. And now I work for PMK.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, working on Call of Duty account. Yeah.
Oh.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Wait, it must be a huge account. Is that your only account?
It's not my only one, but my main one.
It's your main one. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But
sounds like a blast.
So what do you do? Like, what are some like literal things that you do for Call of Duty?
First, it's game seeding, getting physical copies of the game or game codes out to a lot of talent so they could play for free, signing a lot of talent to endorsement deals. Or say, for example, last year, somewhat around this time, the NFL draft was coming up, and we knew Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback from Alabama, was really into Call of Duty. Mm-hmm. And we were able to put together an endorsement deal for him to play the game the night before the draft. One of the former Alabama teammates was going to the draft also, Jerry Jeudy. He was one of the top picks. So we had them play the night before the draft on Instagram Live, film some content with each of them.
Okay.
And obviously that year, the draft was fully remote. It was in the middle of quarantine.
Right.
Got a lot of B-roll of the guys playing from the University of Alabama. So to take all of that footage and splice it all together to a 1 minute piece that each athlete can post on their Instagram accounts a couple of days after the draft, kind of, celebrating them coming into the league and everything.
Right.
A couple months after that, did a lot of PR interviews with them also, with Complex, Sports Illustrated, a few.
And they would talk about
playing Call of Duty and how it helps them build, team camaraderie. And Call of Duty, one of the major themes is brotherhood. And so, that was a kind of a theme between Tua and Jerry Jeudy, is brotherhood also. So we're able to kind of weave those two together.
So almost how the game helps them be better athletes or better
athletes and team camaraderie, exactly, in the way that they're gonna keep in touch. Now they're not at University of Alabama together; they're both heading into the NFL, but they're still able to talk and play through the game.
Wow. Yeah. I would never even play video games when they first were popular, so now I'm totally out of the loop.
Yeah,
I barely played Pac-Man.
Oh yeah, gaming industry is massive right now. Yeah,
I know.
Even did something with a major UFC fighter a few weeks ago, and in the last 12 months, he played Call of Duty Warzone 1,049 hours in the last 12 months, and this is a world-class UFC fighter, one of the best.
So when he's not training or fighting, he's playing.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like a part-time job for him.
You do pay these guys you were talking about. You did pay them?
Yeah, it's a mix of both.
And you deal with their management usually?
Yeah, you have to deal with their management a lot. Yeah, that's who we're negotiating.
But when they're in college, who do you deal with? Them directly?
When they're actually in college, yeah, we can't touch them at all. It's just
right. Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah, once they come out of college and they sign formal representation.
Well, and they're also changing all these laws, or trying to, right, about how student athletes can get paid.
Yeah, exactly. But moving forward, they'll start to be able to.
So do you have your eye on the button of that?
Imagine we'll start getting into that a little bit more. Yeah, getting a little bit younger with some teams.
Interesting. Okay, so you work for ESPN. So how is it like to work for a giant company like that, and then going to Beats by Dre at the point when they were 50 people big?
It's funny, when I took the Beats job, I didn't really fully grasp all of that, but
right, what that meant.
Pretty different going from this massive organization that has a ton of executives and processes to now this tiny 50-person company that if you get up and go to the restroom, everyone notices you're not there. You know what I mean? Probably for me, it was even a change. Also, ESPN is this massive media company, but it's not like an actual product like you could touch and hold.
Right.
Going to beats, it's like a physical product. So, you almost like made friends really, really quickly just because, you might
But
get
you like connected through an actual product.
Yeah, exactly. Or it's like when I started at Beach, you might get a text message just from a random person asking me how I'm doing. And I'm like, oh, okay, that was nice. And like a week later, you get another text by the same person just asking me how I'm doing. And then like a week after that, you get a text from that same person saying, like, hey, do you think you could send me a pair of headphones?
Right.
So like,
that's so funny. Oh, so suddenly you had all these new friends at Beats.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
What actually did you do at ESPN? I mean, this is like, the dark ages, I guess, so long ago, but.
Yeah, so we called it NBA sports marketing, but it's essentially
NBA.
traditional brand marketing, doing TV commercials, working with a lot with the players and our on-air talent. And then we also had another set of commercials promoting all of the games that we had on air.
ESPN I think was it ESPN that had those like funny commercials? They would have like hilarious. Yeah,
really funny. Yeah, they were.
Well, Sports Center. Yeah. That's exactly what it was. It was the Sports Center commercials. So there was one that was, I worked for a former NBA player who was a senator, Bill Bradley, and they had this hilarious commercial. They were basically pretending they were interviewing him for the job to be like one of the announcers on Sports Center. And I mean, he's like this world famous politician, NBA, the last time the Knicks ever won a championship, et cetera, et cetera. And they're interviewing him like April, like we were talking about, as if he was a 22-year-old kid right out of college, or it was really funny.
I didn't work specifically on Sports Center commercials. All of ours were promoting the NBA on ESPN, but yeah, Wine and Kenny was our ad agency at the time.
Oh, right. They were good.
Yeah, they're really, really funny. Yeah, so we had all those commercials. I mean, radio ads, billboards. Like I started the NBA and ESPN, Twitter and Facebook accounts at the time, and social media. Overall.
Right, that's like just when Twitter started.
Probably. Yeah, it's funny. I remember being in a meeting with me and two of my managers on the phone with a digital agency at the time who was pitching us on Twitter and like to start a Twitter account. And I think my boss like put the phone on mute and we're all just like laughing, like, why would anyone do this? Why would anyone like this?
Totally.
That's funny.
Like a year later, it completely blew up and we're looking at each other like
Whoops.
Man. We could have started this a year ago.
Right. Yeah. I think I started one of the first Twitter accounts at the job I was at that time, but it took me like almost a year from when I actually had the account to like 9 or 10 months later to be like, oh.
A lot of learnings from those times also. Like
and back then you could get a lot of organic growth. At first you could get like, new followers without even really trying. And now it's like you can't get 2 followers without paying for it. So,
exactly. Yeah, there weren't many paid ads on the platform at that time.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things I want to know is, how do you relate influencer relations to brand marketing? In your head, is it a piece of it or is it different?
I think it would be like a piece of the overall mix to me.
Yeah. So the other pieces would be the strategic partnerships and sponsorships, and then and then you've got the influencer relations. What are the other buckets in your mind that kind of fall under that?
For certain brands, could be spending money on TV, more paid ads through digital. Could be out of home, could be events. Yeah, a lot of other different buckets. But yeah, I think they should all work together. I don't think a brand should ignore, traditional brand marketing for influencer marketing. I wouldn't say that at all.
Right.
Not for bigger brands.
And do you think PR fits under brand marketing, or do you think it's its own thing?
Probably would say it's its own thing. I say that, but sometimes, a lot of brands now, if they do have their influencer marketing under their PR umbrella. So it's just interesting kind of brand by brand, who handles influencer marketing. Is it the PR team or is it more of the overall brand marketing team?
Right.
But the influencer marketing area is growing so rapidly. It's like you can't ignore that area at all right now, though.
Definitely. How has it changed? I feel like it's already turned into a whole other sort of process than it used to be. Like back in the days you were saying when, you guys were first setting up Twitter accounts, you're like, what am I doing? And now it's like it's a whole other thing.
Nowadays, everyone wants to be an influencer, whereas, I feel like back in the day, it wasn't really like a thing. Now it's like everyone wants to look cool and kind of posture and, the right talent. Obviously, they want to get paid now. I think those are some of the ways that it's changed. And even, just with new platforms coming out like TikTok and even new features within Instagram.
Right.
There's so many other new ways of doing it, and even
the video features and all of those.
Exactly.
I mean, it's like every week you gotta
something new. Yeah, exactly,
Right.
exactly. Even now, negotiating contracts with different talent can just say, all right,
Twitter.
3 Instagram posts. It's like, what are those? Are they hitting your Instagram feed? Are they hitting? There's a huge price difference between 3 stories from talent versus 3 Instagram in feed posts.
Right.
You have them post in feed. How long do they have to keep them up for after the contract? Is it 3 months? Is it 4 months? Is it a year? Yeah, a lot of.
Wow. It seems like almost impossible to really capture all of it in a contract,
Yeah, it is tough sometimes. You have to be smart about it all.
Wow. That's a lot. I didn't ever really work in brand marketing in the same way or like consumer type of PR. But, like I said, I started this Twitter handle and it was it was a big accounting firm and, they're a big publicly traded company and insurance and stuff. So it wasn't about like a product or a consumer. It was total B2B business stuff. And it was so much simpler times. Like I even did some for a client I had of my own who has a venue upstate, and I would go and I would interview him and we'd post it on the, Facebook page. This is like 2 or 3 years ago. And that was pretty much all you could do. And maybe you pay for it or maybe you wouldn't, but it was all right because he still got 12,000, views or whatever on this 2-minute video that I put up. It doesn't happen like that anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. Yeah. It's so much different now.
Oh God, it's stressful. It's stressing me out just thinking about it. What's the next thing?
Yeah, there's going to be more coming. Exactly.
Right.
Absolutely.
Isn't Donald Trump launching a new Twitter?
Yeah.
That's the word on the street. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you see brand marketing and PR working synergistically when it's done correctly?
I would even say like a lot of talent we work with is including media interviews within their deals. Like maybe you have the traditional like influencer marketing and content you're having, maybe hitting the brand's Instagram account, maybe it's hitting TV, maybe it's hitting, digital, that sort of thing. But even other ways to get some ROI out of it, like actually having the talent, sit down and do press interviews with, I mentioned earlier, a Complex or Sports Illustrated or ESPN, that sort of thing. Either way, I'd also say you want to weave in that storytelling aspect. If you don't really necessarily have a story to tell, then it's going to be tough to do either one of those aspects.
Definitely. Yeah. And do you see PR feeding into the brand marketing side of things? If you get those placements, does it help you with the visibility you need to go get those strategic partnerships, et cetera? Or do you sometimes sell in PR as hey, we're going to do the PR for you if you sign on the dotted line for the strategic partnership. So we'll include that in the mix. How does it help you?
Yeah, it's definitely included in the mix early on. I think they both kind of go hand in hand. Sometimes talent doesn't necessarily like see the added value of doing all the PR interviews, but something that's in my current role, Call of Duty, like we kind of mandate that's in there too. And even when you're doing traditional PR, like you'll do one interview with like Sports Illustrated and see like all these different other ways it gets picked up.
So it's in their contracts that they do media interviews?
Yeah, exactly. Like we did something with Kyler Murray towards the end of last year from the Arizona Cardinals, the quarterback. But yeah, within his contract, it's outlined that you have to do X amount of media interviews.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. And so it's probably not so hard to get the interviews because these guys are so well known. Like, it's probably not hard to get Sports Illustrated to agree to do the interview. I would see that the hard part is to get the talent.
To do it, yeah. It's a mix of both. Like, surprisingly, even with some of these athletes, you're pitching them, our PR department is pitching them out. Yeah, it's not always just like an easy home run to get someone from Sports Illustrated.
Not a slam dunk.
Someone from...
Not a touchdown, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, someone from ESPN on the line, even just for as little as 15 minutes. Yeah, sometimes it's harder than it seems.
All right.
Yeah. How do you, to Laura's point, how do you get the talent to stay on message and make sure that the PR placement you're looking out of it actually comes through and it doesn't just turn into who I'm dating now or like what my new record is or like the win from last week?
Yeah, there's definitely those topics that we try to stay, away from. We tell reporters that up front. if talent does.
Right, we're Beats by Dre. We're not talking about the fact that he got arrested, because of whatever, drunk driving 2 months ago. Right.
Yeah,
That's
stuff
not,
like that. Yeah. It's definitely off topic, but certain athletes, who they're dating, might come up. A lot of times guys don't like to talk about that really, but yeah, I mean, that
especially
is,
if they're married.
yeah, but that is a key piece when you're doing the 15, 20-minute interview, keeping it on subject for that long. Yeah, some of them do kind of get off subject, or the writer does a story and it's like, 2 lines of Call of Duty and the rest of the article is about, the game that the guy played, this past weekend or something like that. Yeah, you do really have to keep
and there's nothing you can do about that, right?
Yeah, not really. Yeah, it's tough sometimes. Yeah, but luckily our PR department has like those different relationships with different outlets, and certain writers, they know who's better than others at times.
Right, who's going to play along? Who's going to play nice?
Who's gonna play along. Yeah. So you do get those writers. Sometimes you get them on the phone for 20 minutes, and it's like 2 questions of the subject, and then 12 questions about other stuff.
Yeah, well, because they're probably in some cases excited to finally get to talk to whomever.
Yeah, exactly.
Take advantage of. I mean, yeah. So is PMK still sort of PR first, or not necessarily? Like, are they known as a PR firm still, I guess?
There's 2 sides of the house. I mean, there's the one side where they're publicists to a lot of big names in Hollywood, so they represent.
That's what I know them for.
Yeah, like Michael B. Jordan, Denzel Washington, and then there's the other side that I work on where we do different brands of entertainment marketing. So it's Okay.
So, but do you have to work with managers a lot?
Oh, do I have to work with talent managers? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's what I understand is the key to make really anything happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially when you're negotiating these contracts and everything. Yeah, normally that.
Right. Who knows? Like, regular people out there, they have no idea what goes on behind the scenes like this.
Yeah, it's a lot. Even just one general commercial with a handful of celebrities. I mean, I can take months and months of planning. Sometimes it gets wild and crazy, but it's fun in the end. Like, I really love, once we're able to get the content out there and out there for people to see and everything.
Yeah. Interesting. Do you have an opinion on what's going on with the MLB moving the All-Star game?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was the right decision. I know the NBA did something similar a few years ago. Yeah, so I truly believe like it was the right decision. I'm looking forward to where it's going to be next.
I know they didn't say where they're putting it yet, right?
Yeah, they didn't say. Yeah, I know California was. I think the governor was kind of making his pitch. I saw that over Twitter. So
but where? Which stadium?
He said LA. I think he was trying to get LA. Oh. Yeah.
Really?
So we'll see.
I've never been to Dodger Stadium, but I want to go because it looks cool.
Oh yeah, it's fun. Go get a Dodger dog.
April's gonna be like, again, I always figure out a way to talk about baseball.
She always finds a way. It's like
you got it in there.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's baseball all day, every day. So this is really, really great. It's like I said, it's one of these things that like I just have never touched personally, and it's interesting to learn how it works. Is there anything you want to ask us or tell us about what you're doing?
Yeah, even now, I mean, I would say most of my career is more, sports heavy, but been doing a lot more entertainment work over these last couple of years, which even that in itself, I feel like is different than doing sports work. The people you deal with, like sometimes going to get, a major rapper is different than, getting an athlete. I feel like sometimes agents are a little bit closer to the athletes, whereas music agents, sometimes they might be a step removed from the talent. Sometimes they have to then go to the talent's management and then goes to the talent. So just, learning different nuances to everything. Which has been
between the different genres of entertainment.
Just so funny how, consumers might look at talent as talent, but even if you're going to get like different types of talent, how things can be a little bit different, the different nuances between them all.
Right. Again, things that normal people in the normal world have no idea about. Right.
Have you ever done any of these wacky brand partnerships where you're pairing together 2 brands that don't seem like they fit?
Give him an example.
There was like the Chunky Donkey partnership with Nike and Ben and Jerry's and Nike did Chunky Dunky
Yeah,
sneakers.
I've heard
There was
about.
like the Slack Cole Haan
Yeah,
partnership. They made
I
Slack
thought. Yeah,
sneakers.
yeah.
And
I
then
thought that was weird.
recently, this isn't as much a partnership thing, but 7-Eleven started doing, they did pajamas. They were announcing all day breakfast by selling pajamas. This sort of weird, like, I'm just curious. I think those things are so funny, but I'm curious if you've done it and if you've done it to great effect. Because what I wonder is it just a buzz making thing that's meant to create social, or social buzz for a week? Or does it actually have any lasting impact for the brands that are involved? Do you know?
Yeah,
Do you have an opinion?
Yeah, I've never been involved in any of those, but some of them I want to think that they're more like a social media kind of play, just to get the community buzzing and talking about your brand a little bit more. I do remember the Slack Cole Haan one, which I thought at first I thought about it, was like, well, that might make some sense with everyone working from home right now, and those two brands seem like they potentially could be a match. When you think about it a little bit more, it's like, does anyone want to go buy a Slack shoot? Any Cole Haan fans want to go buy?
And our recent one was Chipotle and Elf Cosmetics.
Oh, right.
So there was a Chipotle inspired eyeshadow palette, and then there was a Face Bowls chip dish that Chipotle was offering.
Wow, that is.
And I just always wonder, is that, are they just doing that to get us to talk about it because it's so weird?
Because it works. Yeah, it works that way. I think that's the goal, though, just get people talking about it in the earned PR. But it works if the two brands are into it. I don't know how much they're exactly
right, because I've never really heard because April and I talk about this stuff all the time. I never really hear much about them after like the week after it gets announced. So
yeah, exactly. It's just that time. I don't even heard about
it. And did it get them in front of a new audience? I mean, I know artists do this all the time, right? Where they pair up together with, a country music star and a rapper or whatever. It's always some weird combination.
Right.
And that's to get a new audience, which I understand. But with brands, I'm like, are you trying to get a Cole Haan audience from Slack or vice versa? Like, what's happening here?
Yeah, why?
It's not as obvious why they're doing it.
Talked about earlier, it's a lot of work going into collaborations like that. So it's like you're not getting what you need out of it. It's kind of like a waste at the end of the day. When I was at Beats, we put together some different concert events that had a huge rapper with like a huge EDM artist at a couple of our events. Just two pairs of talent performing that you wouldn't necessarily think would perform, at the same venue, like at the same time. But, it was more of a party than anything. I think.
Right. Well, that makes more sense. That's like more traditional. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a little bit easier than putting together an actual collaboration.
Like with a new product,
Yeah.
Exactly. Create a whole new product. That's a huge lift. So one last question for you, since you are the arbiter of what the cool kids want. What do the cool kids want right now? And what age is what age group are you like targeting?
For the most part, I'd probably say like 18 to 24, like somewhere around there. I think right now, one of the biggest things is they all want to be influencers. So how do you influence like these wannabe influencers? You know what I mean? But that's the biggest thing right now. It's like they all, want to make money through social media in some capacity.
Yeah. So thank you, Olu, for joining us. It was great. We needed to know about this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the invite. Pretty fun.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. It was a great time.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a good time doing it.
Cool.
All right.
Best of luck with everything with Call of Duty.
Okay. Thank you. Yep.
Okay. Take care. Bye. All right. So here's our anonymous horror story for the week. A few years back, I worked at this small posh agency that dealt with clients in the beauty and lifestyle space. I was pretty junior, probably AE level, and I had worked at one or the other agency before then. The CEO used a 6-month review schedule to determine everyone's raises, bonuses, and promotions. The process went like this. Everyone received a list of goals from their management team. Then, twice a year, each person would meet with their supervisors, manager, and CEO to, quote, argue their case, for why they deserved a raise or bonus based on those goals. It was pretty weird compared to what my friends in the industry had experienced. Despite asking many times, I never received my goals list for the first 6 months. They finally gave them to me 4 months late. Ugh. And I tracked my goals for the remaining 2 months. When my review time came around, I'd only had the goals for 2 months, but my superiors told me there was no need to reschedule. Long story short, I argued but didn't get the raise. This happened twice. I was doing fine at my job, but never had the opportunity to vie for a bonus or promotion under the goals process. The second time it happened, part of the reason I didn't get that raise was that I, quote, didn't try hard enough to get my goals list from my managers. Oh my God. I moved on eventually and found out later that they'd been doing the same thing to other junior staff members as a way to avoid paying out too many bonuses. Oh my God. How can a young person tell when they're falling victim to a larger issue or a scam like that? Or when they just happen to be a forgotten priority? I'd hate to gossip about a manager or team of managers to another colleague, but I think if I'd asked around, I might have identified this problem sooner. Ooh, that is rough.
Yeah, the goals list.
It's terrible.
For years at jobs, I had put your goals together, and then it would be like, now all of your goals have to be the same as everybody else's goals on the team. And I was always like, what? And then effectively, it didn't matter. You got a raise or a bonus or didn't based on some other thing to do with politics or how much the firm made or whatever. It never had actually anything to do with what you did or didn't achieve. Yeah. Unless I would say you were just like some wonderkin phenom, or you were a complete utter disaster and then they fired you. So those goals are just such a waste of time most of the time, because nobody really sticks to them, and they're so hard to, like, your goal on January 1st is not going to be the same usually in a PR firm with a lot of clients flying around in June.
Yeah, I had that happen once where I took a job for lower than the salary that I required. And they said, well, we can't do it until we've never worked in this fashion before. So, because I was going to be remote. And so we've never done that before. So let's try it out for 3 months and make sure it works. And then we'll review your salary then. So let's just sign you here and then we'll review it. So 3 months came and I'm like, hey, where's my salary review? Because I'm clearly doing the job of both my job and the job above me and the job above that, which I didn't quite say, but I knew because I wasn't any spring chicken at the moment. And then it was like, oh, well, we never guaranteed it. We just said we would, leave it open to talk about it. It was like, what? So you had no intention of ever honoring the 3-month salary review. You just used that to get me to come on board and lock into this.
Right.
Which is just crazy. So
they just yesed you so you'd come and work, and they hoped that you would forget or wouldn't say anything. Yeah. And you did. And then what happened?
And I did. Well, then they tried to put together the list of all the things that they needed to see from me before they could actually give me the raise, which obviously hadn't been given to me at the start. So it was a similar situation where it wasn't like, oh, well, surprise, all these things we never told you that we needed to see from you, we now need to see before.
Get out of it. Right. I had somebody say, and when I went to take the job, the initial, and after 6 months, you get a review and a bonus depending on how you did and blah, blah, blah. So 6 months came, and I said, it was a small company. And I said, all right, so, my review, he's like, did some review. And I was like, okay, well, what about the bonus? And he goes, I don't know what you're talking about. I never said that. Meanwhile, I had it all written out the day, on a piece of paper in front of me that I had written the day he offered me the job that said after 6 months, get a review and bonus. And I said, well, Susie got a bonus. Well, she's doing much better than you. I was like, really? It wasn't true. I just went and looked for another job, and 3 months later I left.
Yeah, I quit too. I didn't even look for a new job. I just quit. So yeah, in terms of advice there for somebody younger, gosh, you get everything in writing, and it's good practice for client management where you have to get everything in writing, because in a way clients are going to do this to you too. And they do when, you get more senior things.
I did have it in writing, and he said, well, he didn't write it though, right? Yeah, I wrote down what he said. So that meant nothing. Right.
Right.
But still, that still doesn't mean that they have to do anything or give you anything. I mean, a bonus is not a requirement in 99% of jobs.
No.
So that's when you have to make the decision.
Yeah.
Were you hoodwinked?
Yeah. Yep, I think so.
And that's, I mean, just, and yeah, it's a tactic to get what somebody wants in the short term. They'll just yes you to death. And then when it's time to come calling, they will ignore you or say no or tell you you're crazy or whatever. And then, right, it happens a lot.
Yes.
Before we close out of the horror story here,
yes,
there's one specific question, if you noticed, in the letter that maybe we should.
Yes. How can a young person tell when they're falling victim to a larger issue or scam, quote unquote, like that, or when they just happen to be a forgotten priority?
Go to your manager, your boss, whoever, depending on how big your company that you work at is, and bring your issue to them saying, I was supposed to get a raise and a review at 6 months, or, whatever had been agreed to. If you in fact have been a forgotten priority, people will help resolve that issue. If they start making weird excuses, then you'll know that you were victim to a scam.
Right. And you might be able to find out by asking politely to your friends at the company, but you don't want to do too much of that or you're going to look like a gossip.
Well, I mean, I kind of had it happen to me in a way where I knew that I was not making the right salary for my title and the length of time. And just sort of, I didn't talk to anybody about it. I really took it on myself. And I went to the person who is the head of the group that I was in, and they sort of rolled their eyes at me and were like, okay, schooler, we'll check it out. And I don't know, 10 days later, came back to me apologizing. I don't know how this happened, and gave me a raise on the spot, like in the middle of, October, for no good reason other than they realized that I was getting SCREWED. So I was a forgotten priority in that case.
Okay. That's good advice. I like that.
Not the victim of a scam, which I have been many times. Not that case. So you got to ask. If you don't ask, you'll never know.
Yep. I love that. Do we have any other final things to say?
No, I do not have anything final.
Oh, a sensei bow.
Did the sensei.
A sensei bow. Okay, amazing.
Ready to do the PR news of the week?
Yes, absolutely. And which one did we pick again?
Remember, we were both like, that's the one.
Oh, Volkswagen. So tell me about Volkswagen. So this very weird thing happened where Volkswagen announced it was changing its name to Volkswagen, and it was done as a joke, but the release was put out 2 days before April Fool's Day for unknown reasons. So I started looking. I thought April Fool's Day, was that a weekend? No, it wasn't. It was a Thursday. So why didn't they do it on April Fool's Day?
Right. So nobody knew it was a joke because it wasn't on the joke day. They even blew the whole point of like the April Fools.
Yeah. This is an article from PR News. And it says, noting that April Fool's Day is a longstanding digital tradition, the social media director for the agency that works for them argues that, quote, it's the closest social media comes to a true holiday. So, but I still don't understand why it was put out on March 29th instead of April 1st.
So everybody thought it was real.
Everyone thought it was real.
The name of the company, right?
Yeah.
Or of the car, or both.
Both.
I mean, for like a day at least. I mean, right? I thought I was like, oh my God, Volkswagen, like they're so plugged in to electric cars. They've changed their name. Well, it's sort of like, back when companies were changing their name to .com, whatever .com, like they're all in. I was like, wow.
Well, and what a
like, it's not even funny because it could be true too.
What a weird prank, right? It's like,
meanwhile, like, did their stock drop? Like, they probably like, you know what I mean? Like, you just can't.
Okay, so then it says, by overhyping its electric offering in a humorous way, the car brand drew fire instead of accolades, reopening old wounds from its history of emissions-related falsehoods. However, the issue may have simply been one of timing. Yes, this is a quote. Yes, the Volkswagen plot backfired, but in my opinion, that's only because it didn't happen on April 1. It actually fooled people, especially the media, and nobody was here for that. Perhaps Volkswagen was attempting to get ahead of the flood of April Fool's pitches that journalists have received this week. Maybe the brand's marketing team failed to anticipate the US media's long memory of scandals past. In any case, the brand may have to repair some trust before it surpasses Tesla for most talked about electric vehicle stateside. It seems like such a fail. I mean, and why didn't anybody push back? I mean, it'd be one thing too to put it out on the 29th under embargo, right?
Well, right, but to make sure that it hit on April 1st.
Yeah.
Right.
Rather than just putting it out 2 days before April Fool's Day because we want to beat the April Fool's Day rush.
In order for it to be effective, so I understand that you might want to do this. Let's do an April Fool's thing. Even though I was reading on all of the PR groups that I'm in, like, this is still not a year to do a PR April Fool's Day joke because, like, things just aren't funny yet.
Joking climate. Yeah.
But that's the first maybe error that they, made, is that this was just not the year to do this. Secondly, they should have thought about, okay, so we want to try to get media coverage, I guess was their goal. I guess. Or buzz for their electric cars, right? But how is it going to be taken? What's the impact going to be? Really, what's the goal here? I'm sure they're publicly traded, right? I mean, I'm just assuming. I can't believe like their IR people and their lawyers also signed off on this, but let's say that they did. I still say there was a different way to maybe do sort of something cute, might have been a better way to go at it. So what I mean is, instead of saying we change the whole name of our company and our cars, how about putting out like ridiculous colors of cars, like bile? You know what I mean? Or like have like this hideously ugly colored car and try to pretend like, here's our new palette of colors for our new cars, and have them be or like Bug's nose, or something crazy.
Yeah.
That's ludicrous that people would have been like, what? And then been like, oh, they have to be kidding.
I'm just looking at their stock price. They are publicly traded.
Yeah.
It looks like their stock went up on Tuesday the 30th after the announcement, but it went down on April Fool's Day.
Well, right, because people were like, oh my God, they're doing this great new thing. And then they're like, oh my God.
Not dramatically, went down by about $2, a little over $2.
What price is it at? Was it at?
On the 30th, it was at $37.75. And on the 1st, it was at $35.58.
Right. So percentage wise, it's not insignificant.
A notable
when people realized they were lying or making it dumb, they were like, ew. It's dumb.
They're back up. It's fine. It wasn't a big issue for them.
Yeah. I mean, luckily, but you know what I mean? They should have taken a different piece or part or angle of the joke, not the whole company.
Right.
And at least do it on the right day. Oh my God.
Thank you for tuning in for the PR Wind Down podcast.
And thank you to our guest, Olu, for joining us today for a fantastic interview.
Remember to submit your own agency stories and questions, and to share our show with your friends and colleagues. If you subscribe and leave us a rating, it helps us reach new listeners like you.
And if you have an anonymous PR horror story of your own, send it our way at the contact email below the episode notes.
We can't wait to wind down with you again next time.
Try to say anonymous PR horror story once, let alone 3 times
anonymous
fast.
PR horror story, anonymous PR horror story, anonymous PR horror story. Wow.
You're so talented.